It is the pink elephant theory. If the guest wants a pink elephant, get them a pink elephant. If you can't find a pink elephant, get a horse, paint it pink, convince the guest that's an elephant. Do whatever it takes to ensure they're happy. That's it. Are they happy? Welcome to the Pink Elephant Podcast. I'm Chris Adams, back with you today. Excited to have Andy Bozzo. Did I say it right? Did I do it?
Perfetto. Yeah, you did very well. That's very well.
Thanks, Ed. I said I got to make sure that I honor the Italian roots and do it justice there. But man, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I love telling our story. I've seen a few of your podcasts, and there's great energy. So I'm really excited to be on board with you today.
Thanks, man. So, let's dive into this. You currently, from what I can understand, you have a few different hats that you wear. But let's start first, I guess, at the beginning and getting into being a firefighter.
Okay.
How did that? Is that something that look, growing up as a kid, right? I think every kid wants to be a firefighter, a policeman, something like that. Is that something that you wanted to do at an early age?
I don't think it was. It was something that I was really interested in and intrigued by. I think from age about 0 to 6, yes. Like I had fire trucks and I had, I grew up in sort of rural California, and the whole hillside behind my house, or mountainside actually, just went up. And then seeing all the equipment and personnel, that was captivating for me. Going to fire stations as a little kid was captivating, but then I had a lot of different interests. I got really into sports, and I was pretty good at school. So, I kind of went down the science route. And then I think around high school-ish, I started saying things like, well, I want to be a doctor. I think that made my parents happy. And, that was sort of a sigh of relief. And I sort of started down that track, and I did major in biology in college, but I really sort of gravitated away from like the molecular biologies and got more into the macros. So like natural history. And the thing that got me sort of back into fire at the end of college and then sort of bridging the gap into graduate school, which I did not finish, was this paper that I wrote. I finished college, but not graduate school. This paper that I wrote about forestry succession in the West as it relates to fire. And I was like, this is cool, because I was really into, nature and biology and things like that. And, I figured I had to do something more academic than, I didn't understand that firefighting also has a big academic component to it. But I got into, I dove deep into that paper. I was really into it, graduated from college, started teaching science. And then I decided to go back to graduate school. I said, all right, well, maybe a way to get this, out of my system is to start fighting wildland fires for CAL FIRE, pay for graduate school that way. And then, I'll go on to do something very sciencey or whatever. And I'm telling you, the first whiff of smoke rolling down the road with like 6 other engines and aircraft overhead to like our first column of smoke, I was like, this is it. This is my career. Like whatever had been dormant as a little kid just blossomed, and this is all I wanted to do. And so I sort of set my professional compass at about 27 years old towards that. And I've been a firefighter ever since. I've been on for about 25, 26 years. And currently I'm working as a battalion chief for Contra Costa County Fire. And even people from California go, Contra what? And so if you know where Oakland is, that whole big county that wraps around Oakland's in Alameda County. But if you know where San Francisco and then Oakland is, everything around the East Bay, sort of wrapping around that, is Contra Costa County. I believe the Spanish pronunciation is like away from the coast or counter to the coast. But we're on the East Bay, and God, we have miles and miles of like waterfront with, gnarly, heavy refineries. But then we have the 80 freeway running through the Highway 4, the 680. We have tall buildings. We have urban-rural interface. So what I love about that department is I get to do everything. You get to do a bit of everything. We have, an aircraft, or had an aircraft program. We work with local aircraft. We have a bulldozer program, but we have fire engines and fire trucks, just like in LA County or in LA City. And on any given day, you could be 6 floors up, finding an apartment fire, come back down, get a swig of water, put on your wildland gear, and go off and do 1,000 acres. And so it is a great department. It's just it's a place that people don't really associate with the San Francisco Bay Area, but it's where we are. And
Crazy.
yeah.
And I mean, being in California in general, I mean, the fire situation that happens in the state. I mean, every year it seems like it just gets worse and worse. I mean, you've been doing this for 20 plus years. You're now running an entire division,
battalion,
right? A battalion. Yep. Okay. Talk, and I'm, you've seen the podcast. Obviously, I'm huge on leadership and what does that really mean. Yeah. The process for you of 20 something years ago, going down the road and it spurring something like, oh my God, I want to do this for a career, to now running a battalion. What's changed for you in the 20 plus years of either people you've worked for, things that you've encountered, the growth that's happened within you, to now running a battalion and the leadership that it takes to do that in such a high pressured field that you're working on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, there's a few pillars that are floating around for me. One is, don't ask your guys to do anything that you weren't willing to do yourself. So at some point in my career, I've run over the trench a lot. I've been in some pretty significant fires, and I also have gotten my ass kicked a few times. And so sort of storing that knowledge and what we call in our industry and other industries, recognition prime decision making, like, ooh, this is going to go bad. When I was a firefighter, I didn't care as much what happened to me. It was like, oh, this will be, a glorious, whatever. And now, as I send my guys in, it's like, I'm sending you home to your wife and kids, or I'm sending you home to your loved ones. And we're going to do our risk benefit work. We have this other pillar, with regard to human life. We've all taken the oath to risk a lot to save a life. We will risk our lives. And you've seen it play out across the United States. And it's actually what spurred Tablet Command. We'll risk our lives for other human life, no matter what that life looks like. Even if there's a sliver of a chance, we'll do it. At the same time, as a leader now, I have to do a real risk benefit all the time to say, is that life even with us anymore? Or do I have to pull my guys back? And there are some really harrowing stories around the United States of that. I think about, the Worcester fire, many years ago, where a division chief had to basically bar the door and say nobody else is going in there, because guys just kept on going into the slaughter, so to speak. And it was really sad. And it was, his courageousness to stop anybody else from that impulse. The other thing that really drives me leadership wise is like servant leadership. I think what I've learned, both as a captain and now working as a battalion chief is, leading roll call every day with my companies, which are my fire engines and fire stations, is what can I do for you? How can I serve your needs? Like, can I help you professionally develop? Can we all get better as a battalion? Are we, what needs do you need met today? And there's a big difference. There's guys will say, oh, that's bullshit. You're just rolling over for your guys and blah, blah, blah. And there's a very nuanced difference between being a soft leader and letting anything go, but being a servant leader and rolling up your sleeves and being with those guys on the ground floor, and credibility is a big, big part of it. I worked busy stations, or the busiest stations that I could work in my agencies, my entire career. I tried to, at least. I may have taken, a year off and gone to a slower station when we had a child at home, and I wasn't getting any sleep there, and absolutely wasn't getting any sleep at work. But I'd say for the big majority of my career, I've tried to work at our busiest, craziest stations to have that sort of credibility, to say, to a younger guy, hey, look, I know you're kind of going for glory here, but it ain't worth the squeeze, kid. Like this thing is going to get leveled to the ground, and there's no life in there worth saving. So, and that's hard to do because we
Yeah.
are an aggressive, very interior oriented fire department. And sometimes you got to pull the reins back and say, not today.
You brought up a couple of points that I want to talk about. One is the fact that leadership is a heavy mantle.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is just, there's so much responsibility that comes with leadership. And it's interesting talking to you because normally I'm having these conversations with whether it's CEOs or other individuals, and we talk about the responsibility of leadership and the burden that you take on as a leader, which is very true, no matter what the industry is. As I'm talking to you, you not only have the burden of just being a leader and wanting to make sure that you're doing the things you just talked about. Are you investing in your people? Are you helping with their personal growth? Those things. You also have another layer of responsibility that says, no, this is life or death.
Yeah.
The stuff that most of us deal with as a CEO or any leadership position is, did I make a good decision today? Did I put my team at risk from a financial standpoint? Did I make a good decision to book the business? Did I lose a contract? That's a really different responsibility than saying, are they going home to their family today?
Right.
And I think I'm sitting here trying to empathize with being in that position, and I go, man, I know the weight that I feel from my team. I don't know what it would be like to take that weight and compound it with, am I making good enough decisions that they go home today to their family? And that's heavy.
Yeah. I mean, at any given time, I have at minimum 25 people that I'm supervising, and we are literally walking into fires or other emergencies where there could be bullets flying or, any number of hazardous materials, noxious gases that can, kill you on site. And so it is a really, the leaders that I tried to pattern myself off of were all incredible leaders by example and servant leaders. And they all, to a one, would say, I lay awake at night and I just think about the what ifs. And so you're constantly going through those scenarios in your mind. What if this happens? Well, what if this refinery does this? What if, this neighborhood is threatened? What if these guys are in this position? And so you're kind of cataloging all these, for you Star Trek nerds out there, Kobayashi Maru's, these unwinnable scenarios to try to make them winnable or to minimize those. Some of the best leaders that I followed would say the best way to, save a firefighter from a mayday, which is like when you're in trouble and things are going really bad, is to not have the mayday in the first place. And so that means solid tactics, solid strategy, but it is a burden that, they say they just lay awake at night, all the guys that I have followed in their footsteps. And now I find myself doing the same thing, stressing internally. I'm trying to be a duck, very calm in the face of whatever crisis we're managing, but my little feet are paddling underneath me, running through a catalog of scenarios and escape routes, if you will.
Yeah. The other thing you brought up that I think is important as we talk about leadership, and again, it goes from us, the scenario that I typically am talking about, to yours as literal real life, is sometimes as a leader, you're forced to make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to do. Most people don't like conflict and all these things. And to have to make those tough decisions that most people don't want to make, that's leadership. Well, with you, that's not just leadership. Sometimes it's barring the doors to keep people from going in. That on one hand, they feel like they've taken an oath and it's their responsibility and they want to do this. And it's your responsibility as a leader to identify and say, hey, we've crossed the line. Mm-hmm. It's time to stop now. And that is that's tough because you have to go home at night and again, like you were just talking about, sit up and think about those decisions. Did I do the right thing? Did I do it too early? Did I wait too long?
Mm-hmm.
How many people did I? That's a man. That is it's forcing me right now to think about leadership in a completely different perspective when you're talking about life or death
Yeah.
with the decision making process, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, in the business world, it's, the customer and the team delivering the product to the customer. Is the customer feeling good about, the product that they received or the service they received? Is the team feeling good? And are they clicking on all cylinders? And that same parallel is existent in the fire service, where it's your team, your firefighters, your captains, your engineers, and then the customer being the civilian that's in danger, or the public, and we serve the public in a variety of ways, from innocuous things like fire station tours and school visits, which the kindergartners go crazy for, and then we serve them in the most harrowing ways as well, rolling a whole strike team of engines through Montecito to get citizens out right now, or Malibu, or any neighborhood with urban-rural interface, or putting a line inside of a building, a fire hose inside of a building, and putting it between the fire and the endangered citizens, while other firefighters dive in and grab that citizen through a window. So that's the product that we're delivering in some respects, and we want to make sure that we deliver it correctly, and it just means training. I mean, I guess that's sort of the one constant throughout every. I think the old Leave It to Beaver sort of rendition of the fire services. The firefighters just play pinochle all day. They play in cards and hanging around and petting the dog. And really, I can't think of any fire station around the United States that I haven't visited through Tablet Command, or that I haven't gone to for a training, that they're not 8 to 5 training or running calls, Monday through Saturday. Sunday, they might have the football game on while they're doing something else, but we're so busy training for every myriad scenario that gets thrown at us. So,
last two things I want to talk about before we jump into Tablet Command is one, our industry, we do a ton in the hospitality industry, right? So it's hotels, and it's amazing to me as I listen to you talk how interchangeable hospitality in general is, right? When we talk about our industry, you go into hospitality industry because in theory, those that are great at it, I care more about others than I do myself.
Yeah.
I wake up every day with a mindset of how do I take care of other people? How do I make other people happy? Please let me grab your bags. And I do that because I want to, not because it's my job to do it, right? Which is literally what you and your teams have to do on a daily basis. You're doing it because you care more about someone else's life than, in theory, you do your own many times. It's hospitality on a whole other level.
Yeah, but it's also hospitality on the same level too. If we're going to get our groceries for the day, and we're looking around for those opportunities to carry somebody's bags, or to open the door for somebody, one, to kind of reaffirm that message that the fire department is always there for you. Whether it's, hey, you're struggling with holding your shopping cart, it's going to roll away. Let us put your groceries in there, or hey, you have a snake in your backyard. So in fact, what you just said reminds me of there was a great fire chief out of the city of Phoenix. His name was Alan Brunacini, and he wrote a great book on fire command, which is based a lot on it's the structural version of a lot of the principles that were developed in California over the massive wildfires that occurred in the 70s and 80s, which encouraged this like mutual aid system. And we can get into that later. But another tenet of his leadership was customer service. And he was a huge customer service advocate, both internally and externally. So for years, if you interviewed for Fire Department USA anywhere, a lot of those interview questions for entry-level firefighters was, what does internal customer service mean to you? And what does external customer service mean to you? And external customer service can mean throwing a ladder to the second floor, diving into that smoky room and pulling out the baby and handing it to a teammate and being excellent at throwing that ladder. But it can also mean walking the paper up from Mrs. Smith's sidewalk. And he always used to use Mrs. Smith as a reference, and handing it to her as you're pulling away from a call that's next door, or shoveling the snow off the walk, or whatever it was. It was all those little things that are totally applicable to hoteliers and to great waiters and great hosts and great hospitality outreach, where it's like, you've come to us for a service to and hopefully you leave here feeling really good about the service that we provided for you. And we really take that seriously as well. Customer service internally to each other, how we treat each other, how we regard each other as colleagues and teammates, how we have straight conversations, but we're professional, and then sometimes unprofessional. But then how do we project that outwardly to the customer base, which is very parallel to that we serve. So,
yeah. And the last thing I want to touch on is, you talked about training.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of it. And I think it's obvious in your line of work how the importance of training. And it's shocking to me, one of the things that we see in the hospitality industry is especially now, the constant struggle with helping, whether it's ownership groups, management companies, whatever it might be, helping them understand the importance of training
Mm-hmm.
and investing back in your people. And it's so tough because we live in a world now where if I can't look at it on a P&L, or I can't create an actual ROI against something
Right.
that says, if I invest this, what's the dollar I'm going to get on the other side? Because it has to be a tangible dollar amount. Then the first thing that gets cut in most of these, whether it's a hotel or whatever we're dealing with, is the training piece. Well, can you get it done in 2 days?
Mm-hmm.
How do we shrink that training calendar down so it costs me less money? Or how do we, is there something can we send them something online for them to watch? Or how do I make this quicker, easier, so I can just get more out of my team to get them back on the floor doing work? And if I could take what you do and the importance of how training impacts on a day-to-day basis, the success rate, which is life or death, which has way more importance than what we do on a daily basis. But the correlation between why training matters and what it does for you and your team long term, not just for your business, but for your people individually, for their personal growth, for the morale. Yeah. It's mind blowing how I don't understand why people don't realize the impact that training can have. And it's so great to hear how obviously that's alive and well in your industry and something that happens on a daily basis, which thank God, because of what you do.
Yeah, the best way to shine, if you think that you're going to hide from some sort of skill, Murphy is going to come right in there and shine that spotlight right on you. And
Yeah.
so, in a lot of ways, whether it's, superstition or just fear of failure, we train. The other thing about training that's really important, and I think I could take this back to when I was teaching 7th grade science, or working as a busboy, or working as, in a variety of jobs, is the willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to say, I'm really weak on this skill, and I'm going to look dumb in front of everybody right now. It could be a physical skill. It could be you're pecking away at the keyboard looking for the shift command key, whatever key. But the only way to really overcome that is reps. And I think repetition.
Yeah.
And building muscle memory, whatever that looks like. And the only way to really get there is to say, I want to be better. And I think that's I'm lucky to work in an organization that is really driven by that. And then that flows into tablet command as well. But it's something I sometimes think the younger kids will say, well, I just should know this. I should be good at it. And so then you kind of hide your weaknesses. And I think as we mature and we realize, well, you really don't know everything, I want to learn. I'm going to go ahead and put myself out there. I mean, that's kind of how we launched this business, is putting ourselves out there. It's scary, but you kind of realize, well, what's the worst that could happen? And, you want to make those mistakes in our industry where it is life or death. You want to make all those mistakes in training. And
Yeah.
and then in other industries, it can mean the difference between landing a huge contract or making a big sale or upselling to a better wine or upselling to the specials. So it's, training, kind of just filing the burrs away and polishing. It's a really important aspect of, betterment, getting better on the job.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So now let's transition
Okay.
into tablet command. All right. So walk us through first, what is it?
Okay.
Let's start there.
So this is interesting because, again, you coming from the hospitality and event management, I think this will speak to you a lot. When we have emergencies, and I'll use a fire, but this is applicable to any emergency that you can click on the news today and probably, unfortunately, watch unfold. You throw a lot of personnel into sort of a defined area that we call, the hazard zone. And it's really important to have a coordinated effort within that hazard zone to mitigate that emergency. So to use the example of a house fire, just a very simple example, you've got a fire on the second floor coming out of the bedroom and a potential rescue in a back bedroom as well. You're going to have an engine company or two going in and trying to knock that fire down while simultaneously at least making contact with the victim to either get them out of a window or drag them down the stairs and out the front door. Simultaneously, you've got a company of backup firefighters ready to go after the initial firefighters that went in. You got to hook up your engine to a hydrant. So you've got people working on that, and you've got a truck company on the roof that's usually trying to create a hole over the fire to let all those gases and that smoke out. We put those into different categories and we time them and we theoretically keep track of them. And we've been doing that in the fire service for about 200 years. And that tracking for the majority of that time has been on pencil and paper or a whiteboard, or in some really newfangled ways with magnets, like refrigerator magnets. And because we had seen several line of duty deaths occur in mostly fires, but in other emergency scenarios, where that fog of war that's happening when all of that chaos is unfolding, firefighters are getting lost, they're getting trapped, they're getting unaccounted for. And so they could be screaming for something because they're in one part of the building that's getting really hot. And the incident commander, the head, the lead of the whole, which is usually a battalion chief like myself. In some scenarios, it's a division chief. In other organizations, it had no idea that part of the orchestration was going bad. And so what we decided to do with Tablet Command, based on 2 line of duty deaths that we had in our own organization, and it was because of lack of communication, lack of incident command. There were some big gaps in this incident command structure, or if you will, event management structure, that led to the demise of 2 of our own firefighters while they were trying to make the ultimate sacrifice to rescue 2 citizens trapped by fire. Now, what we decided to do is say, all right, we need to put together a better standardized system of first responder accountability. And when I say accountability, I don't mean, show up to work on time. I mean, where are you? What are you doing? What tactical channel are you communicating on? Who are you with? And how long have you been in there? That was the big thing that was missing with pencil and paper, is how long. And so what we did is we took a lot of these analog techniques. We basically took the event manager's clipboard, we digitized
Mhm.
it, and created a whole new incident management platform or emergency incident management platform that accounts for vehicle location. It accounts for early notification of the initial emergency. It gives you a lot of intelligence notes. It gives you camera views, mapping. And so we've basically given our industry what they've been using the whole time in analog in digital. We've tried to make it replicate writing or moving engine companies from staging to fire attack. A lot of times they would write that. Now we're just tapping and dragging it. And so that's what Tablet Command does. So if you have a major fire in the Malibu Canyon or a major high-rise fire, you can use Tablet Command to manage those hundreds of personnel that are marching into that situation and categorize them as to who they are, what they're doing, how long they've been doing it, where they're doing it. And that has basically daylighted what emergency management should be, and it's standardized it. The problem with writing is the way that you write the letter A is different than the way that I write the letter A. And under stress, it really changes. And there's no timestamp for anything. So we can't go back and analyze and then train in the areas where we are deficient and get better. So Tablet Command.
How long?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, how long have you had this in place now?
So I conceived of it while playing Words with Friends, which is really, and I probably conceived of that I think it was 2009 or 2010. I can't remember the date where I sent Will an email after sort of ruminating on this for about 2 weeks. And we've been a product in the App Store since 2013, but halfway through 2013, we had a lot of fire chiefs come back at us and say, hey, look, this should be an enterprise application and you need to bolt it onto our 911 system. So we did that, and we've been an enterprise software as a service since mid 2013. And, we're at about 700 plus fire departments around the United States and Canada, large metro areas like Denver, Charlotte, Jacksonville. We're about to deploy in Louisville, Mobile, and there's not really a city in California, with the exception of a couple holdouts, that doesn't have Tablet Command or not affected by Tablet Command. So,
wow. So you're seeing a real impact, it now filling this gap.
Absolutely.
In your industry.
It's bringing a situational awareness that we didn't have before. And it comes from firefighters that have experienced these problems. And so, we talk about the pink elephant, and we also talk about eating an elephant one bite at a time. And what fire chiefs across the board say, or fire professionals say, is, look, I need small digestible bites when I need them. I can't eat the whole elephant at once. Otherwise, I'm completely overwhelmed. I need digestible bites, and I need to be able to mitigate this incident in some respects sequentially, in other respects in parallel. But I still need the information that I need, and I don't want anything superfluous. So that's been sort of the beauty of Tablet Command, is creating this elegant platform and bringing all this information under one pane of glass, but allowing that incident commander to select which information is going to impact the next 3 minutes of the incident.
So I have a couple questions now. When we look at technology in general right now, and I think we're seeing this across the board as AI is becoming more and more prevalent, and you have like this, this huge resistance on one side of, the robots are going to take over the world, and then the other side that's like, no, this is a huge win for us. People struggle with change. Human nature, people struggle with change. As you were rolling this out, you said, in California specifically, there's a few holdout cities here and there. How difficult has it been to take something that really is not changing anything? It's doing exactly what everyone was doing before, but in a new manner, right? It's a new approach to it. How difficult has it been, and how much resistance have you had from just, hey, I like writing stuff down, don't change don't change what's in my mind not broken?
Yeah, it's It's been a spectrum. So um, we nervously launched this at a fire trade show in early 2013. And we were stoked on the feedback that we got from the majority of people there, which was like, you nailed it. I've been thinking about something like this for a long time, and you guys nailed it. So, from a product market fit standpoint, the resistance has been minimal. I would say some of the older cowboys have been, look, I know this is good technology. I'm just scared to use it. I'm afraid I'm going to break it. I know what I know, and I'm retiring in 6 months. Or I know what I know, I'm getting out, and but I acknowledge, I concede, this is the future, and it's not much different. And then we've had what has been really fun is we've had some real converts and evangelists in that group of cowboys, so to speak. The other holdout doesn't necessarily come from resistance to use the technology. I'd say there's an overwhelming acceptance from the rank and file of give me this now. The hard part has been integrating with some of the legacy incumbents in the technology space.
Yeah.
They see it as a threat, and then they can sort of pass that threat down to the administration of some of these agencies that are holding out and sort of throw some red herrings in the process, to where we have to do some real political work. And what's great is we have this unfair advantage. I can talk to a chief to chief, or captain to chief in real no bullshit language, excuse my language, but we can
Yep.
talk real talk about how this product is going to improve. And I can point back to a lot of referential customers, not only in their own vicinity, but in their region and then beyond. So like I can definitely walk in and say, hey, don't take my word for it. I know I'm the co-founder and I know I'm using it. I'm a product user. I have an ulterior motive. I'm trying to run a business along with the Tablet Command team. And if you don't take my word for it, call up Columbus, Ohio, call up Charlotte, North Carolina, call up San Jose, call up Sacramento, call up LA County. Let me give you a name. And so I'd say some of the resistance, I'd say the majority of the resistance actually has been incumbents in the space that have enjoyed this sort of, they've enjoyed their position for a long time as software, delivery, with software delivery in the space. And now here are these upstart firefighters come to say, we have a product that's way better and we need to integrate with this and that. And so that has probably been the biggest mountain to climb for us.
Yeah. By now having this software and it's giving you new data that you potentially haven't had in the past, what is, how has it affected training? How has it affected maybe processes that you had done for years and years and assume that this is the way we should be doing it? But now because you have this new data, you're able to look at it and go, wait a minute, we've been actually doing something incorrectly, or we should alter the way we're doing it or tweak the way we're doing it because now we have data to tell us otherwise. Have you seen this give you the ability to go in and change? In my world, it's SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures that I might have for something that we've been doing it this way for a long time. But now I have data to tell me we actually need to tweak or change that based on a variety of reasons. Have you seen that happen now, getting additional data?
Yeah, we've seen two different things. Well, we've seen a lot of things happen. One of the most important things is that you can go back to the incident, and if you're using our checklist, which to mark down benchmarks that are occurring during a fire. So we provide those automatically, and those are agency driven. So agencies will create these checklists that say, in the first 5 minutes of the fire, we want to do A, B, C, D, and E. We got to get these done in the first 5 minutes. And you might think that you're getting them done on time, but you're not really getting them done on time. Now, there can be a lot of factors that affect that. So we've at least gotten to a point where we're looking at that and saying, all right, look, we did want to get a ladder to the roof in the first 3 minutes. The reason we didn't, because there were 3 pit bulls and yard cars. And so we really got to look at the demographics of this neighborhood and some of the hindrances that we're going to face. So maybe that means that we're going to call additional alarms, or we're going to call additional units. It's just gotten us to take a look at the incident a lot more closely versus what we used to do in the past is we'd put the fire out and then we'd all gather around one of the fire engines, usually the pumper engine, in front of the house. And the battalion chief more times than not go, well, the fire went out, nobody got hurt, good job. And that was it. And that's where it lives. Now we have the ability to look at, when did you get water on the fire? When did you knock that fire down? When did you extricate a victim? When did you arrive on scene versus communicate that you needed a second alarm? And that's all now in an interface that you can hold in your hand. And not only, the other really important thing is that everybody across an agency, so I have an agency that has 35 or 36 stations now, 39 or 40 companies. And so there's 40 miles that separates our most Western battalions and our most Eastern battalions. And so a person that's out East can look at a fire that's happening out West and watch it unfold in the palm of their hand and just use that as informative for their training the next shift. Hey, you guys, they had a hoarder house. They used a certain type of, they used 1 3/4 inch. They did this or that to that house. Let's train on that next tour. So that's one thing that we're seeing. The other thing that we're seeing is in the moment, in larger scale incidents. And in this particular anecdote, it's a wildland fire that happened in Northern California, the Carr Fire. And we had 2 units that were mid-slope during a massive blow up, meaning the fire conditions were deteriorating rapidly and really heating up. It was literally exploding. Their road turned black. They had no idea which direction to turn. Their battalion chief, who was their strike team leader, was looking at them on the map and said, you need to make a right turn. They were at a crossroads. You need to make a right turn. It's going to take you to a large dam parking lot. Well, we've never been able to do that before. It was kind of like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, because we didn't really have that situational awareness. So that's been a big change as well. When you see rapidly deteriorating conditions and you can see where your units are on the map or where you've deployed them to perform a certain task, that's something that that situational awareness has never existed before. And that's something that fire commanders have always dreamed of. And now they just have to get used to putting that seamlessly into their operating methods.
Yeah, man, I tell you, it's amazing when you think about technology and the fact that it's one thing because look, every industry has more technology that comes into it that makes us, more efficient or whatever that might be. But are we actually taking the data that we're getting from this technology and doing something with it to benefit us moving forward and make us better in whatever industry or field that you're working in? And yours is life or death. In another industry, it might not be, but are we taking the data that we're getting and are we actually doing something with it? It matters, right? Because easily you can have this, oh, cool, it made us more efficient. And then you could still do the same thing that, you were always doing all right, the fire is out, high five. But the fact that you're actually taking the data and doing something with that information to make yourself better the next time that's the beauty and benefit of the time that we're living in, that technology gives us that if we view it in a way as that it can benefit us versus the resistance of I don't want change. And so it's great to see that you've got a product that you've put into place that's doing that. One, it's making across the country and in Canada as well, making firefighters better at what they do. But I think even more importantly, it's making them better for the future to ensure that lives aren't lost internally and externally because of what you've put into place. And that's a huge win. I want to steer quickly here as we get to the tail end of this. You 20 something years you've been in firefighting. You've come up with a product that you think can make your industry better, which now has put you in the position that you wear two different hats. You are the head of a battalion, and you are now an entrepreneur that is essentially running a company that has running that company is very different from running the battalion, so to speak, right?
Yep.
Did you ever see yourself going down the entrepreneur route? And second part to that question is, how difficult has that been? How much have you had to learn going being the founder of a company and a product, from your day to day and growing within the fire department?
Yeah. So I absolutely, if you told me 15 years ago, hey, you're going to be this entrepreneur and you're going to be the or co-founder of a company, I would say you're really high. It wasn't, I didn't think it was something that suited me. Although I will say, I will go back to my days as a kid. You know, my parents lived near a golf course. We didn't live on a golf course. We just lived in a neighborhood like a few blocks away from a golf course. And my friends and I would go, you know, put our wetsuits on and get in the ponds and fish out golf balls and start selling golf balls for money. You know, luckily there are a lot of bad golfers that hit into the water. There's a lot of good golfers that hit into the water too. So, you know, I would say there was a little bit, I was always drumming up, you know, work around the neighborhood as a, you know, car washes or, you know, cat sitting or whatever it was. And I have a creative bent to me. So creating new ideas, acting on those ideas has always been kind of fun, but I did not see myself doing this. You know, luckily, when I came up with this idea back in 2010, it was about a month, maybe 2 weeks to a month, where I co-founded it with the current CEO, which is Will Pigeon. And so, you know, I get to enjoy these two hats that I wear while, you know, Will is running the company as the CEO and CTO. He retired as a fire chief. He and I were both captains at about the same time in the same agency, trying to put this product forth, not only in our agency, but in, you know, across the United States. So we were talking about how hard has it been to learn to run not only just a business, but a software as a service company. And I'll tell you, there were times where I felt like people were speaking Greek and I had no idea. That came through when we were fundraising. That came through when we were building teams, when we were talking to software developers. Luckily, Will, early on, he was functioning as the CTO early on, and now he's kind of wearing both hats right now. He speaks a lot of the ones and zeros. I don't do ones and zeros at all. I am absolutely an end user. So my value is, yeah, I don't think we're going to get it. Or yes, this is how we need to see it. This is the workflow that it should look like. So early on, it was a lot of storyboarding on literal white butcher paper with colored pencils and shapes, creating buttons, and then moving that over to a wireframe software, learning how to use that. Just even learning, you know, firefighters in general are sort of dirt under your nails kind of guys. We're blue collar. It's a blue collar agency. You know, you roll up your sleeves, you go to work. It's a lot of brute force. We're not the most polished gentlemen out there. And I don't think you want us to be gentlemen and gentlewomen. You don't want us to be. You want us to be able to kick down a door, to throw a ladder by ourselves. At the same time, there was a certain amount of refinement that we needed to take into some of these meetings and learn how to communicate in you know, a very professional way, learn to talk to a board, learn how to show metrics of success, and then learn how to field follow-up questions on deeper dives on those metrics. And so I would say that maybe I've gotten, you know, 1/2 to 2/3 of an MBA, and I just kind of need a textbook to sort of match some terms with some concepts. But, the bottom line is we had to build a business that made money, that created value in an industry that was 200 years of tradition, unimpeded by progress, and sell that in an authentic way. And I will say, I live sort of near Silicon Valley. And so I have some Silicon Valley friends that have been in some high positions in companies. And 201, they've said, you absolutely picked the hardest community, hardest industry to sell into, the government. And it's why, when we tried to raise institutional money early on, it's why a lot of institutions just said, you're selling to the government? That's a hard pass. So, we really had to grind to find people that believed that this business model could work within this industry. And now I will say, Chris, I'm fielding 2 or 3 calls a week from private equity, as is Will, saying, hey, we'd really like to make an investment. And I know we have scratched the first major vein into a mother lode of data that we own. And I think they've sniffed it out because we put up a massive weather balloon. And that's kind of where we are today. But yeah, it's been a grind. It's been hard, but it's been fascinating. I love it. I would do it again. I would absolutely start another business. I love building teams. I love empowering team members. And that crosses right over into being a battalion chief or being I coach water polo in my spare time as kind of therapy, but it all folds into one. You're empowering people. Yeah. You're getting people that are smarter and better than you to make something go forward. And I would say that about the Tablet Command team. We have some very smart people that are just really empowering us to move forward. So,
well, man, I can't thank you enough on a number of fronts. 1, for being here with us today, sharing the story. 2, for what you've done from a career standpoint and being out there in the trenches with your teams, protecting and being a part of that firefighter community. And then also from a leadership entrepreneurial perspective and what you're doing, the message that you're out there telling, and how you're really making your mark in an industry that needs it. And I can take everything you're saying and replicate it right into hospitality, of an industry that's been around for a long time that really struggles with change. You have done that, and you're proving that it's necessary and it's beneficial. And once you get people on board, they really see what it brings to the table and how it can help you flourish moving forward. So, and I can't thank you enough for today and what you're doing and what you will continue to do. I look forward to doing this again in a few months to see how it's continuing to progress. And I hate to use the analogy of catch fire, but really take this and spread it across the U.S., Canada, and even globally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I really love this conversation. I love drawing parallels, and there's no better parallel than your industry, where it's all about service. I think it speaks to the Italian in both of us. And, it's been a great honor to be here today. And I look forward to coming back and reporting on progress, and we can talk further. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, if people want to find you, get more information about Tablet Command, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we're in all the social media channels. So www.tabletcommand.com or tabletcommand.com. We're on Instagram at Tablet Command, Twitter, Threads, LinkedIn. You can read anything from blogs on new releases of different products that we're releasing or different features that we're releasing, to customer testimonials all over Instagram and how Tablet Command has enhanced operations across the United States. So we'll look forward to seeing you on one of our social media channels. And you can also find us at tabletcommand.com.
I love it. Thanks so much. I am Chris Adams. You've been listening to the Pink Elephant Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at chrisadams.official, the website www.ellisadamsgroup.com. you click around them. You can find us anywhere. Make sure that you're giving some feedback on this. We'd love to take some questions and get you in touch with Andy if that's something that you're needing. And also subscribe. We look forward to seeing everyone next week.